Today I'm looking at three new polls out of the state of Pennsylvania, one from Susquehanna, one from Muhlenberg College, and one from Rasmussen Reports, all showing the race in Pennsylvania is tied at this moment in time. So I want to do a video on this because this is very interesting. We saw last week and 2 weeks ago, Kamala Harris has really started to improve her numbers in the state of Pennsylvania. She had a few polls that had her +3, +4, +5. Now we've seen a streak of polls now that has shown the race in Pennsylvania to be very, very tight, all under the margin of error. Every single poll showing the race is a tie or Trump is ahead by 1 or 2, barring the two polls from Quinnipiac and New York Times showing Harris at +5 and +4. So what's the takeaway from this? Well, for starters, I think it's a clear sign that this race in Pennsylvania is extremely tight right now. Absolutely no doubt it's extremely tight. But also, there may be a hidden underlying trend here, which is, if you look back at 2020, Joe Biden was leading Donald Trump by 4.3% on September 25th, as of the time I'm recording this. 4.3%. In 2016, Clinton led Trump here by 4.5%. Harris only leads today by 0.6%. Now, you can argue that and take that however you want. The simple fact is, based on the last two Democratic nominees, Kamala Harris is polling the weakest against Donald Trump in the state of Pennsylvania. Of herself, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris has been the weaker polling candidate in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean she's going to lose the state, automatically? Not necessarily, because, of course, there was a hidden Trump vote in 2016 and 2020 that the polls missed. And in the state of Pennsylvania in 2016, it definitely missed it. 2020, not really, because when you look at the polls in 2020, it actually got the polls average exactly right in Pennsylvania. So if there is a state where the polling may be more accurate, it might actually be a state like Pennsylvania. So maybe the polling average the polling miss won't be as big of a deal in Pennsylvania as some other states. But still, Biden led here by 1.2. He won by 1.2. Okay? Let's look at 2016, where it ended up being Trump plus 0.7. Clinton was up by 1.9. So it was a polling miss, but it wasn't a drastic one. Whereas now we go back to 2024, where Harris is up right now by 0.6%. A very, very close race, a very, very tight race. So if that is true, if there is even a polling bump for Trump by 1% like there was in 2016, Trump would be ahead of Harris right now. And again, it's important to mention here, this is Harris up 0.6 with the Quinnipiac poll +5 and the New York Times poll +4, both of which seem to be against the trend here where the race is tied or Trump is up by 1 or 2. So if you took those out of the equation, Trump would be leading in the Pennsylvania polling average right now. So the only thing that Harris has going for her in Pennsylvania right now is those two polls that show her up in the average. If those polls were not there, Trump would be leading in the average right now very narrowly. So why am I making such a big deal out of this? Because the state of Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes may literally decide who wins the election between Trump or Harris. The electoral map is 226 to 219 right now, and it takes 270 to win. Based on the polling averages right now, we know Donald Trump has a narrow lead in North Carolina, a narrow lead as well in Georgia. Right now, according to the polling average, Kamala Harris has a narrow lead in the state of Pennsylvania. If Trump, as the polling continues, wins Pennsylvania, that gets him to 270. That gets him to the threshold needed to win the election. And that's without me even giving Trump the state of Arizona, where he's currently leading right now. That would get Trump to 281. The point I'm making here is Pennsylvania is very, very important, and that's why both campaigns are putting a ton of effort and a ton of money into this state, because this state may very well choose who the winner of the presidential race is. And by the way, that's with Harris having a very narrow lead in Nevada, a narrowing lead in Wisconsin, and a lead in Michigan. Michigan is the only state of the three that shows her lead staying pretty much constant from last week. Wisconsin's numbers have been getting closer, and Nevada's numbers have stayed relatively the same, but getting a little bit closer. If Trump were to lose the state of Pennsylvania and Harris leads while she's winning right now, that would give Harris the election based on today. But if Trump continues this trend, where a few more polls come out for him that show a tied race in Pennsylvania or him up by 1 or 2 again, that would flip the average and give Trump the state of Pennsylvania. I can't understate enough just how important Pennsylvania is in this election. It seems like Pennsylvania is going to decide who wins and who loses this presidential election. So when we see a poll like this, where there's 3 ties in a row, Trump +1, a tie, Trump +2, a tie, I think we're starting to get a message that Pennsylvania is super, super close, and the Harris campaign needs to be banking on there not being a polling miss like there was in 2016. They need to be hoping for 2020 where they got the polls exactly right, the average in Pennsylvania. Because if it's not, if there's any room for error at all in Pennsylvania that Trump benefits from, that might be literally just enough to go from Harris narrowly winning to Trump narrowly winning. And that very well may give Trump the presidency over Harris. So it's very, very interesting. It's definitely a tight race in Pennsylvania, well with under the margin of error, and this is definitely a very, very important one we have to keep watching leading up until Election Day. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like, and if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button, and make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really, really, really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.